what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers. Many of you have now heard the term stepped-up basis, and it possibly being eliminated, which is very concerning. I encourage you to schedule your free 15-minute consultation with attorney Harlan Mitchell to find out what you can do to protect yourself and your family. Schedule your appointment with attorney Harlan Mitchell by calling 256-216-9884 or by going to bamaestateplanning.com. Do it today. Boutique Air in Muscle Shoals, Alabama offers direct flights to Atlanta, Nashville, and Pensacola. Boutique Air service runs twice daily, 7 days a week with fares starting at $59. Follow Boutique Air Muscle Shoals on Facebook at Boutique Air MSL and book your flight through boutiqueair.com. Boutique Air,
where you can fly private for the cost of commercial.
He's got a cold, nothing to worry about.
Just need a couple of stitches.
Your COVID rapid test is negative.
Oh boy, X-ray shows it's broken.
Trust Trinity Medical Care when you need urgent care or routine medical care. Walk-ins are welcome, or let Trinity help you virtually with telemedicine. Visit trinity-medicalcare.com for more information and follow them on Facebook. Trinity Medical Care, where your care comes first. Located on Governor's Drive and South Parkway.
Experience the difference at Athens Bible School. The vision and purpose is to provide each student a quality education in a Christ-centered environment to develop the whole person spiritually, mentally, physically, and socially in safe and supportive surroundings. The solid biblical foundation permeates learning and culture in the classrooms and every extracurricular activity.
You know, my mother used to say a long time ago, whenever there would be any real catastrophe that was in the movies or on the air, she would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers, just on the sidelines. That's why I think that if news programs could make a conscious effort of showing anybody who is coming into a place where there's a tragedy, to be sure that they include that. Because if you look for the helpers, you'll know that there's hope.
Hey everybody, this is Daryl Worley, and you're listening to The Mark White Show. Hey, step up and make a difference like he does.
Hey y'all, this is Jeff Foxworthy, and you can make a huge difference in somebody's life. You just may not have figured out how yet, and that's why you're listening to The Mark White Show.
Hi, this is Maggie Peterson. I played Charlene Darling on The Andy Griffith Show, and you are listening to The Mark White Show.
Hi, folks. This is Ricky Skaggs, and you're listening to The Mark White Show.
Hello, I'm Gene Stallings, and this is The Mark White Show. Get off the sideline and get involved and make a difference in your community.
You are listening to The Mark White Show. My daddy is your host, Mark White.
Do something good today.
Welcome to another edition of the Mark White Show. I am your host, Mark White. I am so glad that you all could join us today as we talk about a sensitive but very important subject. My friend Ashley Dixon had posted on her Facebook about her experience with endometriosis. And I reached out to Ashley and I mentioned to her that I wanted to reach out to some organizations and find out more about this subject and bring awareness to endometriosis. I did reach out to the Endometriosis Foundation of America, and they connected me with Melissa Boudreau. Now, Melissa started out with this foundation as a volunteer, and she worked her way into working part-time with the foundation, and I wanted Melissa to be able to share her experience as a patient and also her experience with the Endometriosis Foundation of America. Right now, I'd like to welcome Melissa Boudreau to the Mark White Show. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it, and I am glad we are talking about such an important topic today.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned to you as we were getting started, a large part of my audience is female. It's women. I have about 84% women who follow the Mark White Show. I appreciate each and every one of them, and if there is a subject or an issue that I can cover that will help them or someone they love or care about, then I'm all for it, and I appreciate the courage that Ashley Dixon had to be able to share her story to reach other young ladies and women who may be going through the endo experience as well. I want to, again, thank Ashley because she got the ball rolling and she was the one who had the courage to share her story.
So important that people share their story if they feel willing to do it, because it really does make a difference, Mark. I agree with you.
Let's talk about your background with endometriosis. Obviously, you have a story to share as well. When someone's able to share their personal story, then another person begins to nod their head and they say, that's me too.
I completely agree. So for me, and I have a long story, so I'm going to condense it as quickly as possible as I can for you here. But I started having very painful cramps as an adolescent, so in my early teen years, and I thought it was normal. When I say painful, I mean doubled over on the couch, taking Advil, nothing's working, passing out, vomiting, and rocking back and forth. And I also had a school nurse dismissed me and told me this was normal, and my grandma told me it was normal. I remember her being like, oh, I was like you, you're just one of those girls, you just have this very painful period. And I said, okay. And so every month I would miss things. I would miss events with my friends in high school. I would be laying in the nurse's office. I wouldn't be able to go to school. Those are all signs that something is not right. If you're missing events around your cycle, something is off. So that was a first sign. Again, I didn't know it. I thought it was totally normal. As time went on, I started to feel sicker on a daily basis. So in my early 20s, I was just having a lot of stomach issues. I was having a hard time eating. So I was literally eating broth and crackers. At some point, I was working retail and I passed out at work. And this is not during my cycle. This is just like a normal day. And I was like, something is wrong with my stomach. Maybe I have an ulcer. So I just didn't know. I went and had a bunch of GI tests. And of course, they all came back. Total clean bill of health. Nothing wrong with me. I think I was 23 or 24 at this point. And they said, well, it must be IBS, which is a blanket diagnosis for if you have stomach issues and you don't, have a reason. So I was very frustrated because I knew I really trusted my gut. And that's my advice I give to people all the time. You just know when something's wrong. So this is in the early 2000s. So Google was not the Google that we have today, but I just started Googling misdiagnosis IBS. And I found an article that mentioned the word endometriosis. And I read the symptoms and I was in shock. I was like, I this is what I have. I called my OBGYN immediately and said, I think I have this disease. I've been telling you for 10 years that I've had all of these problems, but you ignored me and told me it was normal. I think I have this. So for the people listening, I think it's helpful sometimes to know the symptoms. So like I said, killer cramps were on my period, but I also just had extreme nausea, back pain, leg pain. I would get migraines. I would have hip pain. So some of the things I just did not correlate together. And these pains started to be every day. It wasn't just my cycle. So I think it's really important to highlight that because we don't correlate these things together. So that's why it's hard to get a diagnosis. So I went to my doctor. I told her this. I had an ultrasound done. I had a very large cyst on one of my ovaries. At this point, again, there's no confirmation that I have the disease. She said, let's do a laparoscopic surgery. She did it. We confirmed I had it. When I came out of that surgery, she said, I did the best I could. It was a mess in there. That was what my doctor told me. And at this point, I don't even know what endometriosis means. Like, I don't really know what it means, and there's hardly any information. So fast forward, I found a chat board, Facebook. I'm aging myself, but Facebook wasn't a thing. And so I found a chat board. So for your youngsters listening, that was how we used to talk to people on the internet before social media. And I happened to find a lovely one about endometriosis, and I met people there, and they explained to me, there's only one really gold standard surgery, which is called excision surgery, which was not the surgery I had, which actually cuts the disease out. I had a surgery called an ablation surgery, which actually kind of just burns the superficial layer. So it doesn't really actually remove the disease. So, higher instance of reoccurrence or more issues. And like I said, my doctor said I did the best I could. I didn't even know what that meant. So I really educated myself, and I ended up having a very extensive excision surgery. I had to travel out of state for it because there's not that many doctors who do it. So there's a big misunderstanding with this disease. I have stage 4, and in the following years, I had several more surgeries just because I do have a very aggressive case. But I waited about 10 years in between surgeries, and when I had one in 2018, the disease had actually wrapped itself around my bowel, and I almost had a full bowel obstruction, which is very dangerous.
We listen to people we're closest to. Sometimes maybe the advice we get may not have a medical backing, and it may not have the support of medical experience, professional help. And we can all make mistakes. We can all be mistaken, and we need to be careful when we get advice from people who are not medical professionals.
Absolutely. And even with this disease, I hate to say it, the medical professionals too, because there's not a deep understanding of this disease. There is a gross lack of awareness of how severe it is, how it affects people. How someone can come into a doctor's office and say, I have these 10 symptoms, and the doctor still doesn't know that it's endometriosis. So
wow.
The biggest thing that I tell everyone that I talk to is trust your gut. If you're not getting the answers you want, or you're in pain, find another doctor. Keep fighting. Go to 10 doctors if you have to. And I really ended up seeing a lot of medical professionals before I got real answers. So, I've had, and that's really in a nutshell my story. So I've had 7 surgical procedures for this disease, and I don't want that to scare people because not everybody has that experience. Some people can have 1 or 2 surgeries to actually remove the disease and feel a lot better. So it really affects everybody differently, and there's just so much unknown about it.
Well, and that certainly makes you an advocate, Melissa. Your experience alone, and I can understand and see clearly why you would want to volunteer and be a part of the foundation to make a difference in this way, to be a voice. And I think that's really great to take that, your story and your message, just like in Ashley's situation, to be an extension of yourself to help others.
Yeah, the disease has changed my entire life. And if I would have had an earlier diagnosis or been treated different care earlier, my whole life could have been different. I mean, this is a chronic illness. So I'm really passionate about telling my story, spreading the word, and just trying, the more people we can get to understand the disease, I think the better they will be to maybe not suffer as long as I have.
Right now, we're talking to Melissa Boudreau, and she is a representative of the Endometriosis Foundation of America. I appreciate the Endometriosis Foundation of America connecting us so that we could have this discussion. This is a subject that's very important, and my friend Ashley Dixon shared her story of endometriosis, and I wanted to bring awareness to this subject. I know that there are many women out there who are listening right now. There are those that you're connected with that need to hear this message. I connected with the Endometriosis Foundation of America. They connected me with Melissa Boudreau, and Melissa is on the line with me right now. Melissa has been a volunteer with this foundation. She now works with this foundation, and she is representing them today with information that I hope that you will take with you and share with others.
Thank you so much. Thank you for spreading this important message as well.
I'm glad to do it, and advocating is the way that we get the word out. And you mentioned what we used to have to do when it came to chat rooms to be able to connect with people. And now, of course, we have multiple outlets for social media. We have the web that we can go and search. And even with all those things, even now today, as you mentioned, there's still a disconnect between patient and medical professional when it comes to endometriosis.
It's just a lack of awareness about the disease. And so some professionals aren't trained and to know the signs and symptoms the way an endometriosis specialist would be. And now I'm not saying all doctors, there's great doctors out there, but there's just such a lack of awareness in the medical community, and we're, working on helping with that.
Well, and you have made it part of your mission in life now to be an endo advocate, and you share through your own podcast, The Cycle, and you talk about this subject and you try to bring awareness to this subject, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing that as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really think the first step is just understanding what the signs and symptoms are, and if someone tells you that it's normal, that it's not. I think that's really the first step, and advocating for yourself if you are suffering with some of this pain.
Now, we've mentioned more than once the Endometriosis Foundation of America. Let's talk about how they are helping by support, bringing awareness to endometriosis.
Yeah, so the foundation has several programs because it's Endometriosis Awareness Month right now. It's March. So there's a lot of different programming going on. But for someone who's just starting to learn on their journey, the foundation website is a great place to just start researching and learning stories. There's information, there's research. So I think that's a really good place to start to learn. And then there's also programs like medical conferences where the foundation works to teach doctors about the disease, but then also there's a patient conference as well. So teaching patients about the disease and ways to really manage some of the symptoms, because, this is a full body disease.
And the reality is, Melissa, someone right now who is listening is suffering. They need information in front of them. COVID-19 has kept us away from a lot of different activities and connections that we normally would have on the outside, but we can still make a connection under our own roof and be able to connect with the resources to find out more information. And we don't want someone suffering because they don't know what's going on with themselves. They're not getting the tools and the resources that they need to help.
Yeah, it's true, Mark. And, this disease affects 1 in 10 individuals. Sometimes people are also asymptomatic, so they may not be balled up on the couch, but when they go to try and have children, it could affect their fertility. And that's when they start to find that they may have the disease as well. So I really want to mention that because I think that is also very important. And then one other thing that the foundation does, which I think is absolutely amazing and that I'm helping to work on, is there's an education program that volunteers can volunteer to teach in high school. And like I said, if I would have been educated about this in high school, it really could have changed my whole life. So because of COVID, this has given us the opportunity to change this program to be more virtual so we can have more reach. So, it's an in-classroom program, but we're working to transition it to a virtual program, which is going to be wonderful to start educating students virtually across the globe.
a lot of times people want someone who has had a similar experience to be able to connect with, just like in that chat room 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to help anyone if anyone has questions. Like I said, I'm here to help. I'm here to support. And the foundation also has wonderful social media channels with a lot of information, endo stories on the website, really great ways to just start on this journey. Or if you're in this journey and you don't know which steps to take next, both are very helpful places to go.
They can go to endofound.org for the Endometriosis Foundation of America. Also find them on Facebook. I'm sure on other social media platforms as well. They're very connected there. I know that when I shared with my friend Ashley, she knew about the Endometriosis Foundation of America, and she also knew about a location in Atlanta that she also connected me with. And we want to try to bring awareness to this subject. As you said, it's March awareness, but if somebody has endometriosis, it's well beyond March. It's a year-round problem, and we want to make sure that in this month, yes, let's bring awareness, but let's continue to talk about the subject and continue to bring awareness to it throughout the year.
Absolutely. It's so important.
Well, Melissa, it's been a real pleasure having you here on the Mark White Show to join me. I'm glad that the Endometriosis Foundation of America could join us together as we talk about this subject.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for having the show and talking about this important subject. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. When we come back, we're going to have Ashley Dixon, my friend who had the courage to share her story, and I'm looking forward to talking to Ashley and have her share about her experience with endometriosis. You are listening to The Mark White Show, and I am your host, Mark White.
A little wink, a pat on the back, a big old hug, a little laugh. We can make a difference. All we have to do is try. Every day's a chance to change somebody else's life. Let's all do something good today.
The best way to buy, sell, and experience land is with Jonathan Berryhill. For your farm, ranch, recreational, hunting, timber, and acreage needs, contact National Land Realty Professional Jonathan Berryhill at 256-874-7354 or email at jberryhill@nationalland.com. Be sure to follow Jonathan Berryhill with National Land Realty on Facebook. This is your land. Thompson Roofing and Construction is a locally owned family business serving the North Alabama and Southern Tennessee area. They are a Better Business Bureau A+ member since 2011 and a GAF Master Elite Contractor. Give them a call at 256-952-3309 or check them out on the web at 256roofing.com. They offer free inspections.
Thompson Roofing and Construction.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers. Losing a loved one is hard, but losing a loved one and not having an estate plan is even harder. Attorney Harlan Mitchell witnessed what not having an estate plan can do to families and decided to use his experience to do something about it. I encourage you to go to BamaEstatePlanning.com or give Harlan Mitchell a call at 256-216-9884. Again, that website is BamaEstatePlanning.com. Let Harlan Mitchell help you with estate planning. Do it for those you love, and do it today. Boutique Air in Muscle Shoals, Alabama offers direct flights to Atlanta, Nashville, and Pensacola. Boutique Air service runs twice daily, 7 days a week with fares starting at $59. Follow Boutique Air Muscle Shoals on Facebook at Boutique Air MSL and book your flight through boutiqueair.com. Boutique Air,
where you can fly private for the cost of commercial.
He's got a cold, nothing to worry about.
Just need a couple of stitches.
Your COVID rapid test is negative.
Oh boy, X-ray shows it's broken.
Trust Trinity Medical Care when you need urgent care or routine medical care. Walk-ins are welcome, or let Trinity help you virtually with telemedicine. Visit trinity-medicalcare.com for more information and follow them on Facebook. Trinity Medical Care, where your care comes first. Located on Governor's Drive and South Parkway.
Hey everybody, this is Paul Overstreet, and you are listening to The Mark White Show. Stay tuned because Mark is doing some things on his show that's helping his community and uplifting people. So you stay with him.
He drives into the city, works extra hard all day, finishes up early so he can get away, 'cause there's a blue-eyed kid on
Welcome back to the Mark White Show. I'm so glad that you could join us as we have this endometriosis edition of the Mark White Show. In the last segment, I was talking to Melissa Boudreau with the Endometriosis Foundation of America, and of course she shared her own personal experience, as well as the fact that because of her personal experience, she wanted to volunteer and she wanted to bring awareness to endometriosis. We talked about her volunteerism with the Endometriosis Foundation of America, and I also talked about Ashley Dixon and the courage that Ashley had to share her story and to tell people about endometriosis and bring awareness to the subject herself. Here on the Mark White Show, we're here to recognize difference makers and share their stories to encourage and inspire us all to make a difference. I feel like with this subject, something that I have heard very little of, and I feel like the Mark White Show can be a vehicle for that as well, and I'm glad to be able to share subjects like this to bring more awareness to a subject like endometriosis. Right now, I'd like to welcome to the program Ashley Dixon. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you, and again, I'll say it, I'm glad that you were willing to share with people because, like Melissa's situation, it does bring awareness to the subject of endometriosis. Even as Melissa was sharing with me, Ashley, she talked about the fact that it took multiple doctors, even in the medical profession, to be able to finally figure out that she had endometriosis.
I realized this more, I was doing the math, and it took me 16 years to finally get to the point where I could have a surgery. And I had 3 different doctors. I started going to the doctor for problems in, might have been a junior or senior in college. And I had put it off and put it off and put it off. Because I know you and I talked about when I mentioned in my post on Facebook that I had gone to the school nurse in high school and said, I cannot function today. I cannot stand up straight. Can I go home? And she very bluntly told me, you're in this for 40 more years. Suck it up, buttercup, and head back to class. So it was very difficult to try to share or to really talk to anybody, especially when you have medical professionals that you try to trust that are not listening to you, that brush off how you're feeling or your symptoms that you tell them about. My first doctor, I was extremely nervous for the appointment, and she unfortunately mocked me through the entire thing, and then at the end said, you know, you're fine. We need to worry about this other thing. That we didn't. It was a non-issue, and I didn't get help. And that really, it took me probably 5 or 6 more years before I could get the courage up to go to another doctor about it, because all this time, like, pain and the symptoms were just getting so much worse, and it was really affecting, you know, in college, trying to go to class and be social and have a life. And then when I moved into the workforce, I was having to call off because I don't know how many times I texted my boss and said, I can't get up off the floor today, so you're just going to have to like do this presentation without me. So it took me a very long time to go back. My second doctor did listen a little bit more, and I had done a lot of research because at that point, one of my friends had posted on Facebook about her struggles. And that was the first time I had ever heard of endometriosis, the first time I had ever heard really of women struggling with it, because I've spent all these years thinking, well, I have to be the biggest wimp in the world. I'm so weak. I cannot function with the same pain that every other woman does every month. I just really beat myself up about it. And to have this other woman that I've looked up to as a big sister for my entire life talk about it and share it, and I had that safe space to go to her and ask her all these questions, and her taking that time helped me be able to find a doctor that I thought would be able to help. And even just talking about how to talk to your doctor about it, because a lot of times when we go and we tell them these symptoms, it gets brushed off, or they say, well, you just need to go on the birth control pill and you'll be fine. when really that's one of the worst possible things you can do. So that's not helpful. And you still feel like they're just brushing you off. So my second doctor was like, yeah, I'm seeing signs. I think this is probably endometriosis, but I'm not going to do anything until you get married and try to have kids. Then we can talk about having surgery or any other treatment. And I was just kind of like, well, wait a second. I'm still very young. No prospects for getting married and having kids at the moment. And I need to be able to, function and live my life and be able to stand up straight more than 10 days a month. And she was just like, well, I'm not going to do that. So I said, okay. And I left, ended up canceling future appointments with her because I was like, well, I don't think we're going anywhere there. And again, it took 2 or 3 more years for me to find another doctor, which when I finally did, it was my boss actually, because I felt so guilty and I had gone to her office crying about, I'm so sorry, but I have to go home again. And so I kind of broke down and told her everything that I was struggling with. And she said, I have a friend who has endometriosis. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I have a doctor that I use that did my friend's surgery, and she was great. She doesn't have any issues anymore. I thought, wow, that sounds awesome. So I made an appointment with her. I went to see her. She agreed that surgery was on the table right off the bat, and I was like, well, this is great. So I did several appointments with her in a row, and it became more and more obvious that I was basically I was almost having to bully her into doing the surgery. And every single time, the first appointment, I said, I'm not going on birth control. I have enough issues as it is. Please don't add side effects on top of it. And I finally got my record after a year, and in her notes from each appointment just makes me sound like a crazy person for being like, I'm not doing birth control, I want surgery. But after a bunch of appointments, I finally got the surgery and found out that it was absolutely horrific. I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, so it was pretty graphic. I won't go into details for the sake of you and your listeners, but I do remember coming out of the surgery, and the first thing I said, as my mom, I said, did they find anything? Because I feel like endometriosis really, you develop such a level of insecurity about it, struggling with it for years, because all I could think about before I went into surgery was, what am I going to do if I wake up and they're like, nothing's wrong with you, you're totally fine, and you're just a hypochondriac. What am I going to do then? And I woke up and I asked my mom, and she goes, no, it's really bad. And I burst into tears, and my mom and the nurses were like, oh, honey, it's fine. There are treatments, you'll be okay. And I'm like, no, I'm so relieved. I'm so happy it's so bad, because I was right. And I had to fight so hard to be able to even just get it acknowledged, that for it to then come back, and I had organs all out of place and stuck to my spine and wrapped up in each other, and it was terrible. But getting that diagnosis then meant that I could go somewhere like the research center in Atlanta, where they specialize in excision surgery. So I found out after my surgery and after a few post-op visits that my doctor really didn't do much. She freed up some organs, she did a couple biopsies, and that was it. So instead of getting the surgery I needed that she said she was going to do, she barely touched it. So I will have to end up going somewhere else to get the surgery again. But having that surgical diagnosis really opens up more doors for getting the treatment that, we really need. I feel like there's not enough information about it out there for girls who are trying to learn about their disease or try to figure out if they may have endometriosis, and there's a lot of misleading information out there. They end up taking these Band-Aids, if you will, instead of getting the surgery that is vital to moving forward and getting better from it.
I'm going to tell you, Ashley, I'm very glad that you were willing to share, because That led to me reaching out to the Endometriosis Foundation of America, which led me to the previous interview with Melissa Boudreau. And her message is almost right in line with yours, because her message basically was to trust your gut. If you feel like there's a problem, then you need to push forward with medical professionals and know those symptoms and don't take no for an answer. And it sounds like for you, you were persistent. It took a very, very long time, and we don't want that to happen to another person. You were persistent, and you are where you are, but your story, your message, maybe can help someone get help much, much sooner, because that's another thing Melissa said, is she lost a lot of years in her mind trying to figure out what the problem was. We can't hold on to regrets, but at the same time, I can understand if you have something like this and you have to go on a decade, 15, 20 years, 30 years, some people even more of your life, and you look back and say, if somebody had only paid attention to what I was telling them, I could have lived a fuller life than I've done to this point.
Yes, and I think it's important. I know, especially, I think of all the little girls that I babysat growing up or were really close to, or my cousins and members of my family. And I want to make sure that, thinking of them and all the other girls and even older women who are struggling with it and don't know, it's all because it's not talked about enough. I say that, but it's such a struggle for me to talk about it still to this day. Like, I had spent so many years hiding it and trying to not let anyone see how much pain I was in or how weak I felt about it. And by not talking about it for so long, I had all these women around me that had the same struggles that I didn't know about until a couple of nights ago when I made my post. I mean, for all intents and purposes, my godmother, who struggled with the exact same thing, it's very prevalent in my family that I didn't know about until I had started getting these appointments with the doctors. And we have that support network, but we don't know that we have it because we won't talk to each other about it. So I'm trying to be better about talking about it and being open and hopefully encouraging others to talk about it. And I think it's important for friends too. Not that everyone has to, you don't need to watch your friends trying to figure out their weaknesses. But if you notice it, just being very kind to people. When you call your friends and you have plans and you say, hey, I've come down with a cold, I can't go out tonight. No one questions it. When you call and say, hey, my uterus is attacking me from the inside, I can't make it tonight. They're like, what? Did you just make that up? Like, I guess you don't want to be friends. So, just making sure that, if someone is struggling, just to show kindness and understanding about it. And I really appreciate, you doing the segments and education. And so many of my other friends have said, I just spent all this time reading about this, and, I wish I had known sooner so that I could have helped you through it. It does make me wish that I had been more open about it growing up, but I'm going to try to do better about that now and moving forward.
Well, I'm proud of you, and when I think about what you're saying, there's a stigma to a lot of different subjects, and one of which I covered last week was suicide, and especially in the law enforcement community, there's a stigma behind that. And to be able to talk about these subjects and be open about these subjects, we really do have to open that door ourselves. And Ashley, if you don't see other people opening that door, then you take the initiative to turn the handle and open the door. And through the Mark White Show, when I see a subject that I feel like there's a stigma and there's not enough being said about it, then I turn the knob and open the door. And together, we open that door for other people to walk through. And there's someone listening right now that is being affected by endometriosis, and maybe they're going to look for help now because of this conversation.
I do hope that anybody who is out there and struggling, or even just questioning if that could be what they're dealing with, to make sure. I'm always here to reach out about it. I will private message you. We can go into however much detail or little detail as you'd like. But the resources, the foundation that you mentioned, the research center in Atlanta, are all such good resources. And just my biggest tip and advice would be, do not go to Pinterest for endometriosis treatments and it doesn't work, it's not a good idea. Stick to your crochet projects and recipes on Pinterest, not medical advice, because I made that mistake and it was a mistake. Just making sure that you're getting the right information, and I'll do my best to try to lead people to those resources that are there that can get them the help that they need.
Absolutely. And while we're talking about resources, again, we want people to be able to find the Endometriosis Foundation of America. They can go to EndoFound, E-N-D-O, found, F-O-U-N-D.org. They can also find them on Facebook and other social media platforms. The center that you mentioned in Atlanta, the Center for Endometriosis Care, and that's all one word, Center for Endometriosis Care in Atlanta, Georgia. I want women who are listening to be able to reach out to these organizations. Yesterday, of course, was the 2-year anniversary of your surgery. It allowed you to be able to speak about it. You took that opportunity. You had courage. You had bravery, things that I admire in you, Ashley, and I appreciate the fact that you've been able to share with me here on the Mark White Show today to share with our listeners.
I really appreciate you opening these doors and letting me talk about it. I will say, when I woke up this morning and I was super nervous about it, I was like, at least it's Mark and it's not someone else, and it'll be fine.
Absolutely. And this is, as you said, Endometriosis Awareness Month. And so let's bring awareness to endometriosis, and let's don't let the conversation stop today.
Yes.
I hope that this show is getting the conversation started when it comes to endometriosis. You listen to Melissa's story. You listen to Ashley's story. Think about your own story. Think about someone you love and you care about. Think about that best friend. I don't want anybody to suffer as Melissa and Ashley have. I also want to speak out to the medical community. If you know the symptoms of endometriosis, you know the signs of it, you're not necessarily geared towards the subject of endometriosis. Maybe it's something that's not your specialty. I hope that you will reach out to someone who it is their specialty, and that you will get the information that you need to be able to help your patient. I think that's really important here, that we don't ignore patients. We don't ignore what a person is telling you as a patient. I had a doctor that ignored what I was saying as a child and thought it was in my head. Thankfully, my grandfather had the wherewithal to ask for a second opinion, which saved my life. It is great to ask for second opinions. You should always be comfortable asking for a second opinion. If a doctor doesn't like you asking for a second opinion, you probably need another primary care doctor. That's my suggestion. Yes. We need to be able to listen to ourselves and our bodies and be able to explain. And you know, you have just a few minutes before they go to the next patient. It is really good to write down what's going on with you so that you're very thorough with yourself. We expect the doctor to be thorough, but we can be thorough with ourselves, can't we, Ashley?
I did that. My first appointment with the second doctor, after I had learned the symptoms of endometriosis, I went in with a full list with symptoms and dates of each. It really helped, and that helped frame the conversation so that I didn't waste her time, and she had a clear understanding of what's wrong. And then she asked to keep my list afterwards because she was very impressed with how much detail was in it.
Impressive. Well, you're impressive, Ashley, and I appreciate you joining me here on the show. And again, I tell people to go to the Endometriosis Foundation of America. Go and find those tools and resources there. So thank you again, Ashley Dixon.
Thank you.
Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of The Mark White Show as we focused on the subject of endometriosis, bringing awareness not just in the month of March, but year-round, because this is obviously a problem not confined to 30 or 31 days in a month, but extending beyond that 12 months out of the year for a person who's dealing with it. If this show is making a difference in your life, I hope that you'll share it with your friends, your family, and your neighbors. Let them know about The Mark White Show, because we are recognizing difference makers in our communities and sharing their stories to encourage and inspire us all. You can follow The Mark White Show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also subscribe to The Mark White Show podcast via Apple iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Audioboom, SoundCloud, Blueberry, and on YouTube. This is Mark White, encouraging you to find your purpose by making a difference in someone's life today.
And gentle people who shout a friendly hi when they go passing by, who live and love in my hometown. These are my kind of people.
Hi, everybody. This is DJ Thomas. You know, raindrops may be falling on your head, but on Kyla's Corner, she's living life sunny side up.
Nothing seems to fit.
You are my sunshine, my only.
This is Kyla Carter of Kyla's Corner. You can hear my segment every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time and 11 a.m. Eastern Time on The Mark White Show. Remember to tune in every Saturday and always live life sunny side up.
Please don't take my sunshine away.
Hey everyone! I just wanted to pass along this really important message because it's important to me and everybody around me. Did you know that 22.6 million Americans have battled COVID-19? Now, a huge surge in COVID cases has risen up in the US, but if you have recovered from COVID-19, you may have powerful antibodies in your blood plasma. Like, what? That's absolutely insane. One COVID plasma donation could help save 4 COVID patients. So, if you want to be a hero, which I know you do, just go to a donation bank for blood or give some of your plasma if you have recovered from COVID. Anything helps. Love you.
Is it time for a haircut? Go see my friends Philip Butler and B.H. Parker at Southwind Barbershop, located at 1637 Lee Street in Rogersville, Alabama. Give them a call at 256-247-5658. That's 256-247-5658.
If you like hickory smoked ribs that fall apart at the slightest pull, or barbecue shoulders that are so slow smoked each tender bite melts in your mouth, then you are going to love Baby Jack's Barbecue. Baby Jack's Barbecue in Bartlett and Arlington. Try the barbecue chicken, beef brisket sandwich, barbecue potato, it is huge, or the Baby Jack Trio, pork, turkey, or beef brisket sliders. You like wet ribs? They like dry ribs. Get one slab that has them both. Catering? Baby Jack's can feed a family or an army. Drive in, drive through, order online, or come in and set a minute. Baby Jack's Barbecue in Bartlett at Highway 70 in Appling, or in Arlington at Highway 70 just a block west of 385.
Hello, my name is Christian Martinez. I'm a rising senior at Athens Bible School. My school is great because of the wonderful environment in which students can grow and flourish. We have great academics that include the University Preparatory Diploma and dual enrollment courses that lead to an associate's degree before high school graduation. All my teachers and the school's employees are Christians who are devoted to the welfare of students. We have an excellent student body, competitive sports program, and study the Bible first thing every day. It's a great place. Please consider joining us at ABS next year, or give that special child in your life the great opportunity I have.
Mr. Cecil Batchelor is the one that started this business as Dependable Service Center. And even though now it's Green's Dependable Hardware and we're a True Value store, our tagline is still Your Dependable Service Center. We've tried to keep that alive for all these years. Mr. Batchelor really started a good business. We're really excited to be carrying on a long-standing tradition. It's the oldest retail store in the city of Russellville. We're Green's Dependable Hardware, 15220A Highway 43 in Russellville, Alabama. We're right behind McDonald's or right across the street from the hospital. Number is 256-331-0123.
Your Dependable Service Center.
Oh, won't you hear me, people, when I say, well, let's all do something good today.